the 18-month regression is a really tricky one in the sense that it can last anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. There's no fast track to this. If you choose a really clear pattern of response, your nights are still going to be a little bit hectic. I mean, back and forth to the door could take an hour and a half, an hour 40 minutes, sometimes 2 hours. Toddlers need really clear limits. And so as parents, one of the ways that we can move through this regression is to hold a really clear boundary that bedtime is bedtime, and that's kind of the end of it.
Welcome back, Nap Trappers. This is an episode for the scheduling queen. Beck, that's you.
Oh, yes.
You're like, sorry, who? Is a guest
like,
joining us?
Someone's joining us. Oh, yes.
I love that we hit record and you'll never quite know what's going to come out of my mouth.
It keeps me on my toes. I like that.
Well, welcome everyone. Welcome, Scheduling Queen. Today we are talking about the 18-month sleep regression. Every single week do I get messages in my DMs about 18-month-old or 16, 15, 16, 17, 18-month-old babies, toddlers, dare I say, with tricky sleep. And for listeners, they'll know that I think you too, Beck, are a little bit of a tough crowd with a lot of the regressions that sort of just get bandied around. Regressions in sleep can happen at many different times. It's just sleep takes a backwards step. There's lots of different causes, but I will say I subscribe to the 18-month sleep regression.
Oh, yes, so do I. And it can be explained away. It's like the 4-month sleep regression. We have the 8 to 10-month sleep regression. They're all things that happen at a certain time, and then it impacts sleep. And so they're real moments in time that can really create a little bit of a nosedive situation, and parents need strategies and ways to be able to navigate through them. And the 18-month regression is one of those ones where it's so helpful to have an understanding of what is happening, why it happens, and a plan to move out of it, because it's by no stretch a quick fix. The old 18-month
Nothing
regression
with toddlers is. And I remember when we did the 2-year regression, we were like, we cannot sugarcoat this for you guys.
No.
Like, we will be lying if we're like, oh, it's so easy. Toddlers are in a league of their own.
They totally are.
And so we won't sugarcoat it. You may not experience it. You also may. And I think that's another thing, that your it really can happen from 15 to 18 months, right? That would be the most common time we see the causes of this regression start to manifest. And even if you have a 10 out of 10 sleeper, it can still happen. What you'll need to hold on to in those moments is, oh, hang on, I had a 10 out of 10 sleeper. Those skills still exist.
Yeah.
I'm going to recognize this as the 18-month sleep regression. I'm going to listen to this podcast episode, and then I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. So, Beck, as the scheduling queen, do you want to talk to us about, I can chat all day about the 4-month sleep regression, and I know you have a deep love for the 18-month sleep regression. I just make you out to be the nerdiest sleep consultant ever.
I know.
But do you want to talk us through the 18-month sleep regression?
So the 18-month sleep regression is more of a limit testing, boundary pushing behavior. So what you'll notice is that you'll be able to put your child down for bedtime. It typically happens at bedtime. Actually, I'm always, this is a bedtime battle. And so you'll put little Johnny down at bedtime, and he will be going down beautifully, but then one day you'll start to notice that there's a bit of a difference now, and there might be screaming at the cot as you turn to leave. They could be asking for more books, more cuddles, more drinks, more everything, sort of like pointing, banging, all the things to try and get your attention to come back and do something else. Like, don't leave, do something else. And you'll sort of think to yourself, geez, that's quite odd, because we've got sleep looking super schmick, and like little Johnny just normally waves me goodbye and we're all hunky-dory and he goes off to sleep. But usually coincides with a burst of language skills. So this particular development is learning how they can influence their little world around them with their communication skills. So often this is happening when your child is able to put a couple of words together. So like I was saying before, more book, more cuddle, more booby,
Mm.
more milk, more anything. It could be get up,
No.
No.
No nai. No
Yeah.
mummy.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's no daddy, more
No
mummy. And
daddy,
you
more
start
mummy.
to divide and
Oh
conquer.
my gosh, yes, you hear that a
Mm.
lot.
Mm.
Uh, and so initially you're sort of thinking, that's pretty cute. Oh my gosh, okay, what's the harm? We can just do one or two more books, totally fine. And then you
Mm.
go to leave, but then the requests continue. And then all of a sudden it's now 8:40 at night. You've read 17,000 books. You're still trying to get yourself out of the room. There are tears, there's crying, there's backflips, there's everything. Um, and it feels so unusual that you start sort of thinking, gosh, I wonder if I need to help them go off to sleep, so you
Yeah,
start
how do
doing
I
more and more to
fix?
calm them. Yeah, it's like so you start doing a little bit more. But then night after night, you're starting to see this predictable hoo-ha. And now it's becoming a little bit like, gosh, I'm not really sure what I'm doing. So you've really got to think to yourself, I think this might be the regression that the girls are talking about. And you need to find a way to come up with a very clear response in order to create a really calm, predictable pattern again for your toddler to predict and expect. So we need to go back to basics and sort of go in with a really clear bedtime routine where you are highlighting everything is the last thing going on.
Mm.
Because we need to redefine bedtime and hold a really clear boundary that when you are learning a new skill, you can do all these fun things throughout the day and ask for another book at 4 p.m., ask for
Yep.
another drink at, anytime you like. You can do all those things. And it's really, we are encouraging all of that. But toddlers need really clear limits. And this is where they're trying to test boundaries. How many books can I ask for? How
Mm. Where
many how
is
many
the limit?
drinks do
Where's
I
the
need?
end?
Where's the end? And so as parents, one of the ways that we can move through this regression is to hold a really clear boundary that bedtime is bedtime, and that's kind of the end of it.
Mm.
So it's really hard to do that when you're a little bit unsure but what if they're really thirsty?
Yes.
What if they're really thirsty? Or what if I did forget that book and I really didn't mean to? Or, you start sort of second guessing yourself. So it all comes back to confidence again. So you go through your bedtime routine and you might say things like, all right, darling, pick your 3 books. We're going to read 3 books and then, we're going to put them away. Okay, great. Last book. Pop it away, darling. Pop it back into the bookcase. Okay, great. All right, now I need a big squeeze. This is our last cuddle.
Mm.
And then you're doing, this is our final kiss. Give me a big sloppy
So
kiss. And
you're
then you,
verbally cueing them that
yep,
each of these steps is the last hurrah and that
yes.
there won't be any more after this. So it's not like, oh, well, we'll just go through the motions and like always and
Mm,
then I'll leave and
mm,
shouldn't they just know? No, you're
mm,
verbally cueing them to say last book, last cuddle, last
yeah.
kiss, everything.
Because you're both active participants in it, like
Mm.
if you're saying go get the last book or put the last book away and they are, then there is a transaction almost happening,
Yeah.
that you're
They've
both part of.
participated in
Yeah.
this agreement.
So it just means you're highlighting them. It's a little checklist that you're both doing at the same time. And then when you go and put your toddler into the bed, then you can confidently say, good night, darling. Mummy and daddy love you. See you in the morning. And you turn and you walk out the door like you have been doing for quite some time.
Mm.
And then you turn and you walk out. Now, they're not going to be happy about this and they're going to want to try and engage you into coming back. And so that can look like quite heightened behavior.
Mm.
So jumping around, screaming, crying, banging their hands on the cot rails. We never
Yeah.
sugarcoat things.
No, it can
You
be a
know,
full-blown tantrum at
yeah,
bedtime. Mhm.
full blown. And because we wanted to try and create a really clear boundary, uh, we're always coming back to respond. We're absolutely
Mm.
always coming back and forth. But
Yep.
what we want to try and avoid doing is stimulating this even further. And so what I mean by that is you want to try and come to the door every, I don't know, you choose your comfort level. I try and sort of say once every 7 to 10 minutes if they're really escalated.
Yep.
And you're just sort of going to back to the doorway and saying your sleepy time phrase. You're okay, mate. Time for nana. See you in the morning. Calm, neutral, nothing to see here, everything's fine, walking back out again and then waiting again and going back to the door and just repeating the phrase until eventually little Johnny goes back off to, like, sits down and goes off to sleep.
Mm.
But what can make it even trickier is when you are trying to plead with them and bargain and bribe, come on, darling, mummy wants you to lay back down. Come on, sit down. No, come on,
If
sit
you
down,
lie
lay down.
down, mummy will stay in, even though you haven't done that for 10 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've read 7 books. I'm not going to read you another, like you're really, there's a discussion there and now there are 2 players involved.
Mm.
So it's still not productive. No one's getting anywhere, but the stimulation is there in the sense that you are now actively engaging and talking and we're trying to figure out a resolution that's never going to happen.
No,
And
no one's going
the
to win.
no one's going to win. And so it's just time, like that's just sort of sucking up time, and just extending the bedtime process. So the 18-month regression is a really tricky one in the sense that it can last anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. There's no fast track to this. If you choose a really clear pattern of response, your nights are still going to be a little bit hectic. Coming back and forth to the door is still probably going to take an hour. Like, it could take an hour and a half, an hour, 40
Mm.
minutes,
Mm.
sometimes 2 hours. You're going
I
to
was
be
going to
doing
say
that
2 hours would
regardless.
not
Yeah.
shock me, just because
No,
based on the stamina of a toddler who's also had
mm,
a nap.
they have had a nap.
Mm.
So yes, so that's common that the hoo-ha goes on for quite some time. And regardless of if you are doing all the books and doing all the things or you are just coming back and forth to the door. But what will be the difference is if you're just coming back and forth to the door and you're just saying one phrase each and every time and you're not getting involved in anything, then what you'll find is that the regression will end very quickly
Mm.
because it becomes there's no longer 2
It's
players in the
boring.
game. It's so boring.
They
And
found the
you've
limit.
held a boundary. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've held a boundary. They've found the limit. Okay, mum and dad are upholding this. There is no way forward. Like, this is just what they're doing for eternity. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
I know that I'm like, we just do our 3 books at bed. We have a kiss and a cuddle. I have a sip of water and I go off to bed.
Mm.
Um, the other, this other side of that is that if you are going in and out and doing all the things and doing all the books and so forth, and you're wanting to calm the situation down, which a lot of families, like hearing your little one upset is so, so difficult. We talk about this all
No,
the time.
yeah.
Absolutely no one on this planet wants to hear their little one upset.
No, and an 18-month-old is loud, and it can be big tears, it can be stomping, it can feel angry.
Mm. And heartbreaking,
Yeah.
that this is happening and that they're tired. Like, and like
Mm.
that's the hard thing is like, they're tired. And I think this is where, like, if you don't have the heads up for the 18-month regression, this is where it all feels like it all starts to unravel because they're so upset by all of
Mm.
this and you're wanting, and it's going on for so long and you just want them to go off to sleep because you know that they really need their sleep, that you
Mm.
start doing more and more and more in the
Yeah.
hopes that the upset lessens and lessens and that they go off to sleep faster and faster.
Mm.
And on the other side of that is when the regression ends, say 6 weeks later, for all when you're doing all the hoo-ha, what you're
Mm.
kind of left with is now props and sleep associations all over again. Because now your child is probably falling asleep with books or you sitting in the room and, you've done XYZ to help speed up the process, get them off to sleep and so forth. And now they are thinking that they need all of that in order to go off to sleep and return back to
Mm.
sleep overnight. So we often see sort of like a residue of, it almost feels like you're going into battle and once the battle is done, the residue is that we've got props that we need to now
Mm.
take out of the mix in order to
Which could
strengthen their
feel
self-settling
like
skills again.
the regression sort of hasn't ended
Yeah.
because you're still, and
Mm.
depending on where your starting point was, if you've had this great independent sleeper, if you're then stuck sitting in a room, patting, holding a hand, reading 7 books,
Yes.
you're going to feel like you are still, to an extent, in the thick of some
Yeah.
sort of regression,
Yeah. Yeah.
even if the sting has been taken, like maybe it's less
Yeah.
heightened
Mhm.
as it was initially. I think that one of the tricky things can be is that we still, even for a sleep trained baby or toddler, we always want to listen and start with connection. And what can sometimes be the initial stumbling block, sort of on night 1 of the regression, is, oh, they don't usually ask for 3
Mm.
extra cuddles. We always want to meet our baby's needs. Okay, this is
Mm.
unusual for them. They must need something. I'll do that, of course.
Yeah. Mm.
And then the next night appears and it's like, oh, we're still here needing
Mm.
this, but we've had this great day. Everything else has been fantastic. We've been together all day,
Mm.
blah, blah, blah. Okay, maybe this is just a phase. And then it kind of just has this tendency to snowball. And that's because, to your point at the beginning, is because of the verbal aspect, the verbal
Yeah.
milestone, it
Mhm.
plays on a different heartstring. And I'm not saying that they are being manipulative. I'm not saying that you're being taken for a ride. None of that. It can feel a bit manipulative 6 weeks into an 18-month regression where you're suddenly doing 12 books and being told where to sit and what to wear and what to
Yes.
do. But
Yeah.
it can happen so quickly because we always want to start with connection and we
Yeah.
want to meet our baby's needs. And if they have been a great sleeper, it can be a bit like, oh, this is new.
Mm.
Of course I'll meet that need.
Mm.
And then it snowballs. And that's why it could happen to Beck or I. Like it's not
Oh, yeah.
we are not immune from
No,
this.
no, no.
And it is also an 18-month-old or a toddler in general being a toddler. They
Yeah.
are doing their job. They are figuring out, where do I sit in this picture? How far can I push it?
Yeah.
That is their
And how
job.
far do I push it?
Yeah.
Because, like, do I ask for this once, twice, 3 times? Because they really don't understand the power of their words. They really
Yeah.
don't. They've been a baby and their needs have always been met for them. And now they're able to signal and influence. And
Mm.
so what, you've been reading my mind for all this time, and in my mind I've been asking for to be you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so how, like, more books, do
But
I
they
ask?
also, they're not watching the clock either. They're not like, oh, I'll
Mm.
do this until 10 to 8 and then I'll call it a day. Like, no, they're just going to, as we said, like they've had a nap, they've got stamina. A
Yeah.
toddler has such incredible willpower. And the other thing is that I often experience with families is that when they're in there doing all the things, when you're in the thick of it and you suddenly find yourself trapped in the room doing the 10 books and as you said, the
Mm.
hoo-ha, is it can then go so long that a toddler can then get overtired. Like they have
Yeah.
missed that window
Mm.
and then it feels like this will never end because then they either get a second wind and they're like,
Mm.
I can go all night.
Yeah.
Like just watch me.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
that's when big tears can really start to come into the scenario because they're so tired that the emotional regulation, which for an
Yeah.
18-month-old doesn't need to be their strong suit. They've been up too long now and everyone's getting heightened as well. And maybe parents are getting a bit like, quick, go to bed, like, or sending in the other parent, or it all starts to get heightened. So if we can treat this and nip it in the bud from a less is more, bore to reassure,
Mm.
always show that you will come back. Of course, give them a pattern of reassurance. It still may take a long time, but I would rather it start from a place of being well rested at bedtime
Yeah.
versus, oh gosh, we've done the hoo-ha, it's 8:40, now I'm going to start the behavioural technique, and
Mm.
it drags on even more and it's even more heightened. We start it from bedtime. We treat bedtime the way we want to see through the rest of the
Mm.
night. And I think it's really important because we appreciate the sort of emotional vulnerability of this regression and how it can make parents feel, is that we want to back you and say it is absolutely okay for you to have a boundary around bedtime and sleep.
Mm,
It
yeah.
is absolutely okay for you to prioritize a toddler that needs their sleep and you to have a rest, to switch off, to go and have a hot meal, to go and, if you're me at the moment, it's needle pointing, go and
Mm,
do something else. You can clock off to an extent from the parenting. And we talk about this all the time in our house. Two things can be true at once. You can have that boundary, and it's okay that your toddler is not happy about it.
mm.
And that's where the no sugarcoating comes into it. Because, like we said, you could be using a technique for 2 hours and it's not enjoyable for anybody.
Mm.
You don't have to be afraid of your toddler's reaction.
Yeah, you don't have to be, and it doesn't have to feel like it's working. Does this make sense?
No,
Like you
yes,
were
yeah.
okay, so, like, the big thing that we hear for the 18-month regression is that, "Yes, but I'm going back and forth and it's not working, they're not falling asleep." But there can't be an expectation of how long it takes for them to fall
Mm,
asleep. If your child has been going off to sleep, say you've had to use the technique before and they were 10 months old and you used, a Ferber type approach of going back and forth and sort of saying your phrase and whatnot, and they were asleep within, say, 15 minutes most nights, this is a totally different kettle of fish. So it's not a,
different
this is
child,
not
yep.
a, yeah, this is not a, you are not sleep training.
Mm,
This is the big difference in this area. And with this regression is that you're not sleep training, you are just creating boundaries.
mm,
And it's really important to feel like you have a way to positively improve sleep.
mm,
And the key is to be really consistent and follow through, even when it's hard.
yes.
Because what we want to avoid doing at all costs is thinking, oh my gosh, it's been 45 minutes and me going back and forth to the door isn't working. I need to speed this process up. I'm going to go in and pat to sleep.
Yeah.
Because it's not a self-settling issue and it doesn't need to feel like it's working. The key to this particular strategy that we're using is that in time, your child is going to learn the boundary because every night is exactly the same.
Yeah.
And that's how the regression will end faster, not because we're trying to get them off to sleep at a quicker pace. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And I think what the other thing is that in that scenario that ends up happening is a toddler learns the longer and harder I cry and carry
Yeah.
on, then I will get X, Y, and
Mm,
Z from mum. I'll get the patting. And if you want a pat, we're not saying like, you can change the rules at any point, but if you're wanting to break out of this and get back to that great independent sleep, those skills are still there, but you need to see it through until completion so that a toddler doesn't learn the longer and harder I cry, the more likely I am to get X, because our job, we all want to minimize longer and harder crying,
mm,
everything. We
mm,
want this to be productive. We want this to be part of a plan, a strategy. Okay, we appreciate we know what's going on. This is what we're going to do. And you see it through so that you don't feel like, because that can also become the status quo then. I cry for 45 minutes, then
mhm.
mum comes in. And then the next night it's I cry for 45 minutes and mum comes in. And it becomes the new ritual. Again,
Yeah, it's the
babies
learned
and toddlers
behavior.
love,
It's the
patterns,
routine.
and that
Mm,
becomes the new pattern. So we
mm,
have to have a pattern interrupt if that's the
we do.
case.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that's where we go in very low stim to just say, I'm here. I will always come back. I love you, even if you are feeling so heightened. I don't
Choked
know. I
up.
always feel it
Yeah.
like in my throat and my neck,
Mm,
when you're
I
like, oh
know.
my goodness. Um, I tell parents you go into low battery mode. So you just kind of switch off a little bit,
Mm,
and you just keep going, because we also, energies match. If you go in and you're
mm,
heightened, even if it's at the 10-minute mark, that's gonna a
mm,
toddler's gonna pick up on that. So you just go in, cool, calm, and collected. Borrow my mantra. I've talked about it before. I am your unflappable leader. It is
yeah, I love
night
that.
time. I love you. This is really hard, and your job is to support them through something that's really hard.
Mhm. I'll always remember I'll always remember a client, this is years ago, I'm gonna say like 9 years ago.
Mm.
Whenever I think about parents doing the back and forth to the doorway kind of thing, I'll always remember this lady who sa said that she was organizing her party for the next day. There was a party that she was having, I think it was like a hen's night or something similar, and she was making jelly shots for the party.
Oh, oh,
And
fun.
she was like, "I just had to keep myself busy making the jelly shots." And she said, "In the end, I had a couple of the shots and they weren't even set yet, but I just had," she was like, "I just had to
Yeah.
keep myself busy
Yeah.
and get through it." And I'll always remember that. And she was slicing watermelon and so forth. So in my mind's eye, I've always got jelly shots and watermelon when I'm thinking about.
The
But
18-month
you
regression.
have to keep really busy. Like it's just
Yeah.
keep yourself busy. Um, it's hard with your first because you've got one and you're really,
Mm, mm.
your all your time is focused on them and what they're doing. And I remember thinking when my third was born and my middle child was going through the 18-month regression, how much easier it was because I wasn't sitting there focused on what he was doing. Instead, I had the baby to focus on.
Yeah.
And so because of that, it was almost like oh, I better go. Like, I'm feeding the baby, I'm doing the baby. I better quickly go back and say something, but I've got to get back to the baby. So I
Yeah.
wasn't sitting on the couch waiting for the time to go in. It was just sort of like,
Yeah.
and because of that, I don't want to sound callous, but it just wasn't as heartbreaking because I was
Yeah. Yep.
busy. I had jobs, I had
Yep.
other kids. It was just something that I had to get through,
Yep.
and they did too. So, yes, it's so tricky. It's very hard. We get loads and loads of questions about it.
Mm.
Probably also worth mentioning are things that we often see from questions coming through how parents are dealing with the 18-month regression,
Mhm.
trying to navigate it without actually using a tactic. So, some things that families will do in order to speed up bedtime is that they will create a very long wake window from the end of the
Yes.
nap to bedtime
Yes.
in order to try and really tire their children out to make them fall asleep faster.
Yes.
Sometimes that will
Which kind
work.
of makes sense. Like it
Yeah.
makes sense when you're like, how do I troubleshoot this? How do I navigate this problem? I'll max them out, and then they don't have the willpower to
Yeah.
stand up and battle.
Sometimes it will work, and the majority of the time it won't because they will
Mm.
still be ready for the fight. And then
Mm.
now
Which
you've got
is
a
why,
really
like,
late bedtime. And
exactly, which is why I was like, start from bedtime.
yeah.
Start from well rested. It may still carry on for a long time, but don't
Mm,
don't get them to the point of no return before you've even
mm,
started, because it may also work and you think, oh great, this was the fix. They just needed a bigger wake window. But 5 nights later, it happens again, and then you've really got this overtired cycle, and then the nap's short the next day, and then it all just starts
mm,
to disintegrate before your very eyes. So yes, I understand why parents do that. It makes sense, like if you do the calculation,
yeah.
sleep pressure and all of that. But I wouldn't recommend it. I would much rather start
Mm,
with a well-rested baby, a
yeah.
toddler, and just see it through.
I often also find that those families can sometimes, let's just say it does work,
Mm.
and their child is falling asleep. Quite often, they could potentially be interpreted as split nights if their child is waking up and resisting going back off to sleep because they're having their little protest in that moment.
Mm.
Um, and then but I'd rather have the protest at the start of the night.
Give it to me at bedtime, any night of the week
100%. Yeah, yeah.
versus 2 a.m.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes it's just, we have these moments as parents, we've just got to face them head on.
Yes. Yep.
Be brave, be tough. Like it is
Yep.
like, the parenting is getting like parenting's real from the day they're born.
Mm.
But toddlerhood is so unique. It is wow, we've got to brace. We've got to
Yep.
unite. We've got to find strategies to get through
Yep.
in one piece. In one
Yep.
piece.
And we have to remember what is age and stage appropriate, that emotional regulation is still developing, that they
Yeah.
are seeking autonomy,
Mhm.
that, nap timings, they shouldn't be shifting too much, but maybe they've only recently dropped from two
Mhm.
naps to one naps. Things are changing,
Mhm.
and some have stronger preferences and want to be more vocal about it than others. The other thing
Yeah.
I'll say is, because we like to work holistically, yes, we've talked, that this is about boundary setting and boundary
Mm.
uh, holding. Is that a
Mm.
word?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, is that you can also help fill up your toddler's cup, but also strengthen your backbone come bedtime by trickling in a few strategies throughout the day. So if you've listened to our podcast episode on the bedtime routine, which
Mm.
talks mostly about babies, but you can kind of, plug and play it for an older
Mm.
toddler and baby, is that we actually incorporate getting wriggles out, moments of connection,
Yeah.
running races, scooter rides, all of the things. And that's where I'd say to parents, we're about to have a moment of separation that they're not going to be thrilled about, as that you're currently experiencing around bedtime. I want you to pop your phone away, the screen, and
Yeah.
even do little Johnny led play. Little Johnny wants to
Mm.
do Hot Wheels cars on the magnet tiles. Fantastic. Give that moment of connection for the two of you, so that then you can get to bedtime and be like, no, no, I know this feels hard, but we've just loved on each other, and it's
Yeah.
okay
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I'm now
that's
going to
nice.
hold this boundary. The other thing is that you can add in all of these micro moments throughout the day of giving little Johnny all of these moments of choice. So, do you want bananas or strawberries in your smoothie? Great.
Mm.
He chooses a nana. In it goes. Do you want to use I heard you, Beck, before say the 3 books. You, as a parent, choose the 3 books. Little Johnny gets to choose which ones. Oh my goodness, great choice. I love that book. I was so hoping you'd choose Spot for the 10th night in a row. Or, in our house, it's the non-negotiable is you have to brush your teeth. I will routinely brush teeth upside down. Or do you
Yeah.
want to fly like a fairy? Like you don't, we can get creative. We can bring play into this. Do you want to
Mhm.
wear the striped pajamas or the red ones?
Mm.
Then there's no choice about it's bedtime now, but you can
Exactly.
feel the resolve of like, no, I've given you lots of really age appropriate ways for you to assert your autonomy,
Yeah.
which is your job. And now I'm going to be the parent and hold this boundary around sleep, because we all need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, couldn't have said it better myself. Well done, Sally.
Oh, pat on my back.
Yes.
Can you tell
A
that I
plus. A
have
plus.
recently had a toddler?
Yeah. Oh
So
my
yes, these
gosh.
are it's parenting toddlers, as you said. It's a game changer from here on out.
It really
And there
is.
will be lots of moments where boundaries are pushed, whether it's sleep or something else, but we always want to protect your bedtime so that everyone has greater capacity the next day for emotional dysregulation and tantrums
Mm.
and boundary pushing. This is
Mm.
something that you can, as a parent, absolutely hold firm on.
Your future self is going to love you for it. I think
Yes, I love that saying of yours.
it's really it's a hard one. It's lengthy and it's challenging, but it is definitely worth it. We just need to get through it. Um, so yeah, I think hopefully there's a few tips and tricks in there that you can start straight away if you're facing this challenge now.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And we believe in you. You can do hard things, as can your toddler.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Well, I think we've covered a big one today, Sal. I think
Aren't
that
we
was
fun?
we've been
It's all these ones are always like, oh, hopefully we
yeah.
haven't made it too turgid and doom and gloom. But now you'll feel
But isn't I
equipped.
think there is merit in building something up to be sometimes really hard and it is hard and
Mm.
challenging. Sometimes, and if it's anything less than that, it feels like an
Ah,
absolute
I
bonus,
love
doesn't
painting
it?
the worst case scenario. Love it.
Worst case scenario.
Yeah,
Yes.
because everything looks good.
Yeah,
Once you
everything
go in
less than that,
so
yeah.
equipped,
Yeah.
ready to fight, boxing gloves on, a stopwatch around your neck, low battery mode, and then it's 15 minutes of, oh, okay.
Oh, so what a deflation. Oh, my God. I was prepared. Oh, my
Better to be
goodness.
prepared. Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, we will see you on the next episode of Nap Trapped.
See you later, team. Don't forget to share us. We
Yes,
love
like,
to,
subscribe.
Yeah.
I get a little thrill, like dopamine hit when I see like someone else has given us a 5-star rating on Spotify. So feed my dopamine addiction, please, everyone.
Yes, we do love it. All right,
Keep it
team.
coming.
Have a good one. Until next time. See you
Bye.
later.